All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here. My name is Officer Ben Tobias, B-E-N-T-O-B-I-A-S. I'm the spokesman for the Gainesville Police Department. Yesterday, people from outside of our community came to create violence and disruption. They came to bring hate to our city. Yet the people of Gainesville showed them exactly what our town is all about. Shortly before 5:30 p.m., we received reports of a shooting near the intersection of Southwest Archer Road and Southwest 34th Street. Our preliminary investigation revealed that people in a silver Jeep began harassing a group of protesters that were on foot. An argument ensued, and the people in the Jeep reportedly began threatening the protesters with Nazi salutes and Hitler chants. The threats continued further and eventually resulted in 28-year-old Tyler Tenbrink of Richmond, Texas, exiting the vehicle armed with a handgun. Brothers William and Colton Fears of Pasadena, Texas, were also in the vehicle and were encouraging Tenbrink to kill the group. Tenbrink then fired once towards the crowd. Thankfully for everyone, Mr. Tenbrink missed any persons, and instead his bullet struck a nearby building. The three then fled the area. Amazingly, one of the protesters, having just been shot at, had the forethought to correctly write down the Jeep's tag number. Due to the Richard Spencer event on the University of Florida campus, law enforcement resources from the local, state, and federal levels were still operating in what's called Unified Command. This Unified Command allowed local investigators and FBI analysts who were already in the command center to quickly identify the vehicle and the likely occupants. This information was quickly relayed to all area law enforcement agencies to look for the vehicle. Shortly before 9 o'clock p.m., Alachua County Sheriff's Deputy Adam Diaz was off duty and headed home after a long day of working the event operations, like many of our law enforcement officers had done that day. We had received intelligence that the vehicle was traveling north on Interstate 75. Deputy Diaz, even though he was off duty and way north of the location, began looking for the vehicle and ultimately located it on the interstate. Units from the Alachua Police Department, High Springs Police Department, and the Florida Highway Patrol conducted a high-risk felony stop on the Jeep at the 405 mile marker on Interstate 75 North, where the three were taken into custody. Handguns were also recovered in the vehicle. Having the vehicle license plate information was absolutely vital in the quick apprehension of these three suspects. I am simply amazed that someone that had just been shot at was brave enough and calm enough to get that information to law enforcement immediately. That key piece of information was just what the law enforcement agencies that were working yesterday needed to bring these folks into custody quickly. The three remain in the Alachua County Jail. The Fears brothers were charged with attempted homicide for their role, and Tenbrink, the shooter, was charged with attempted homicide and carrying a firearm by convicted felon. These three men have shown connections to extremist ideals or groups in the past. In addition, I would again like to thank all of our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners that ensured safety in our town yesterday. Unfortunately, a few of those agencies did not make it into yesterday's joint release, and I would like to thank them right now. Thank you to the Belle Isle Police Department, Ocala Police Department, Orlando Police Department, High Springs Police Department, Alachua Police Department, and Gulfport Police Department. I would also like to thank the Florida Department of Agriculture Deputy Division Director Richard Miranda for the use of their facility, the UF Shands Orthopedic Center, and the Florida Department of Transportation Gainesville engineer Steve Scanlon, who assisted us with road closures yesterday. Again, I would like to thank Gainesville for showing these outsiders that our town is no place for hatred to exist. Members of the group that were shot at literally stood up to someone shooting at them to show how strong our city is. That's all I have prepared at this moment. I'm going to introduce Alachua County Sheriff Sadie Darnell for a couple of brief remarks, and then we'll take questions at the conclusion. Sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate your interest in this story and to getting the word out that this was an unprecedented mobilization, as we call it in law enforcement, a standing up of resources that I've never seen. And I've been in this work for 39 years, so I've seen a lot. This is a situation that was wrought with unknowns. We had unknowns regarding what we typically have in investigations are some good forms of getting intelligence. We did not have that. This is a different day and age, and the technology in some areas works for us, and in this kind of situation it works against us. So we did not have credible intelligence as we went through this. With that, we had complete unknowns about the numbers of people, who they may be coming to our area, and what their intent would be. So it took a great deal of courage and preparation of trying to anticipate everything. I think it's very appropriate that we're having this conference in the Hall of Heroes here at the Gainesville Police Department. It recognizes the heroic efforts of what we referred to as our most valuable players yesterday from all over the state, and also some national resources and federal resources. So I am woke up this morning still a bit tired, but incredibly proud, especially of the men and women at the Alachua County Sheriff's Office. For me as sheriff, it's about putting the right people in the right places with the right emphasis, especially on training and equipment. But I can also tell you that the incredible relationships that have been built in our community, especially in the law enforcement arena, having to do with Chief Tony Jones from the Gainesville Police Department, Chief Linda Stump from the University Police Department, and Gene Spalding, a colonel with the Florida Highway Patrol. We were the incident commanders, and we operated this as incident command in a unified fashion. That worked really well for us, and it, in large part due to the relationships that were built over decades, and also because we could go into this knowing that we had people at high levels having our back. And that goes all the way to Governor Rick Scott, who was tremendously inquisitive about the need for the declaration of emergency, but incredibly supportive always, accessible every day. He called and checked in every single day. So when you have the leadership at the top in our state, followed by the commissioner at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and other support agencies who are in the Emergency Operations Center, and of course an unprecedented mobilization of the Florida Sheriff's Association, where over 20 sheriffs contributed resources and assets to this endeavor. And it demonstrated very clearly that the work of making sure that Florida was safe and that the message was sent clearly that Florida is a hard state, it's a hardened state, and not to bring your issues, whatever they may be, of intentional harm to anyone. We will not tolerate that. We do want to, and our role, especially as sheriffs, are to protect the Constitution of the United States and the state of Florida, and we did that well, but we will not allow people to intentionally hurt others. And also I had locally support of community leaders. Most visibly and most supportive is our commission chair, Alachua County Commission Chair Ken Cornell. I'm going to introduce him in a minute, but I tell you, about having the support of the governor and the local leaders, our mayor and the president of the University of Florida and the commission chair and our Florida Sheriff's Association, made this as unknown as it was. It made it gave me and others the ability to see this thing through, and I attribute great praise on everyone who was involved. There were some hiccups, but they were very few, and we got through them very, very quickly. We have lessons that we learned from other areas and lessons clearly that we have learned from this, and we will get better as law enforcement, as a society, in responding to these issues that challenge all of us. Next, I'm going to turn it over to a tremendous leader in our community, a tremendous supporter of law enforcement and public safety. In fact, that is his primary agenda. He has been true to that and genuine about it, and we have become genuine friends over the years. I introduce to you Alachua County Commission Chair Ken Cornell. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And I will be brief. What a wonderful unified law enforcement operation from all aspects, from the governor's office all the way down to the local level. This event that occurred yesterday, with the culmination of the incredible work of the Gainesville Police Department and all of the agencies involved in apprehending an individual that brought a firearm to our community, makes me proud to be an elected official. Most of all, though, proud to be a representative of our community. You know, as was stated earlier, this occurred and started with information from our citizens. And it is our citizens that stood up stood strong and spoke out against hate yesterday, showed that the unity of both our law enforcement personnel all the way to our governor and to the citizens of Alachua County, and really throughout the state, unity and togetherness was the winner yesterday. And so with that, I want to thank personally Sheriff Darnell, Chief Stump, Chief Jones, all the elected officials, and certainly all of our state partners for really their unified message of we are here to protect our citizens and to protect the Constitution. And with that, I want to thank you. So thank you for covering this. Do you have other folks you want to speak? Yeah, okay.
All right. Does anyone happen to have any questions about the shooting investigation?
Officer Tobias, two of these men spoke with us and other members of the media before this happened. They made some very, anti-Semitic remarks. Were they being tracked by law enforcement? Were you aware of them before this shooting?
I think if they were being tracked by law enforcement, our response time would have been even quicker to locating them than it was in the mere 3 hours that we did. I'm not aware of any kind of tracking or anything of these individuals just based on statements. We have a lot of statements that we hear all through the day.
Is this going to be a hate crime? What the protesters were, some of them, I'm hearing potentially.
Well, with a hate crime, what a hate crime does is just an enhancement to a penalty. These men are already being charged with aggravated or attempted homicide, so a hate crime is just an enhancement to that penalty that happens in the court system. Yes?
Had anybody, either with your department or law enforcement in general, had any contact with these guys that you know of before the shooting?
I know that the Gainesville Police Department did not. I'm not sure of any other law enforcement agencies. Yes, ma'am?
Had they been at the speech? Did they attend the speech inside the
I'm not sure if they attended the speech.
What kind of guns do they have and how many?
Just handguns, and I know at least 2. I don't know the specifics any other than that.
Texas license plate?
Yes, the vehicle was licensed in Texas.
And they came specifically from Texas for this event on campus?
Don't know their itinerary, but they came from Texas and they were at the event, and we have reason to believe that they came here to bring some hatred. Yes,
You mentioned that one has a felony record?
yes, I know that one has a felony record. I don't know the details of that. All we have to know is that he has a felony record to affect that extra charge of carrying a weapon by a convicted felon.
Can you expand at all on their connections to extremists? Is it simply what they said and the language that they used, or do you have any other information about their connections?
At this point in our investigation, and let's face it, this investigation is not even 24 hours old, so there's still a lot of information that's going into this, and we don't have anything else publicly available about their connections at this point.
When they were pulled over, did they resist at all?
I am not sure of the actual stop logistics there.
Forgive me.
Yes, Gabby. I'm sorry, Gabby was.
Tenbrick, I believe that he asked to be under custody originally because he was surrounded by a lot of protesters. So that was just protective custody?
What was your question?
I just wanted to confirm if he was under protective custody, and then when you guys let him go, he went and shot at somebody.
I have no clue. The Gainesville Police Department had no workings on the inner part of the protest area and no contact with them.
Let's talk about the trajectory here. One shot fired. How close do you believe it was to potentially killing someone?
Well, when you shoot into a group of people, I mean, it could be mere inches. Without, yeah, absolutely. It could be mere inches into that group. So it's tough to tell without, having cameras at that location to see where the bullet went. But someone shooting into a crowd definitely has the intent of hurting or killing somebody in that crowd.
Do you know what drew them to the crowd of people in the first place when they pulled over?
I don't know what drew them at this point. Yes,
I
ma'am.
was going to ask, have there been any words exchanged between these groups of people? Have they said anything to each other that you're aware of?
From what I understand, once the altercation began, it pretty much started ramping up very quickly up until the gunshot.
Did these people in the Jeep ever exit the Jeep?
I know that at least the shooter exited the Jeep, and I'm unclear if the other people that were there actually exited it or not. Yes?
Where did the incident start? In the CVS parking lot or at the bus stop?
We originally had some information that it may have started at the CVS and then moved to the bus stop, but some of that information is a little murky when it comes to where it actually started, but we know that it definitely, came to a head in that area.
Can you speak a little bit to one of the victims / witnesses actually accompanying law enforcement to the place where these guys were stopped and identifying them? I mean, how often does that happen? And the ability of that witness to not only, if I understand it correctly, the same guy, catch that license plate, but then also have to see this through that way in just a matter of hours in such a highly, charged environment.
Well, and you're right, it's a high charge environment, it's a high stress environment for this victim. I am just absolutely blown away by the strength of this person and their ability to recall details and things of that nature. What we did is called a show up. It's basically in place of like a photo lineup, but this time we actually have the people wearing the similar clothing, hopefully the same clothing that they were wearing during the incident. So it's called a show up. We take the person to that location where the people are so they can positively identify, and that's a very big key. They have to say, yes, this is 100% the people that did that. That helps us in our prosecution later down the road, that we can hand just a great case over to the prosecutors.
Is this going to go to the DOJ? Is it going to be a federal investigation because of the nature of what was going on at the time?
At this point, we've delivered our case to the state attorney. Where it goes from there is up to him. Yes, Meryl?
2 questions. First, a follow-up. That show-up did occur yesterday?
Yeah, the show-up did occur yesterday. The vehicle was stopped on the interstate. GPD detectives took the victim to that traffic stop, the location of that traffic stop, to make the positive identification on the subjects.
Can you talk about how you used Charlottesville and other areas of danger as an example for what you guys need to prepare for?
Well, I can do it very simply by saying that we're going to look at other areas that have had events such as this, and we're going to see what worked for them. We're going to see what didn't work for them, and we're going to base our response on things that may have happened there and things that we may think happened here. So we're using any lessons that we can from those areas to prepare our plan. Of course, we're not going to go into any details of our plan because the bad guys watch television as well, and we're just proud that our plan worked.
Can you tell me how many officers were out on the ground?
A lot of them. Yes.
The victims who were shot at yesterday, how many were there roughly, and then were they university students, were they just protesters from in-state, were they from out of state? More details on that.
There were about 6 to 8 protesters, and I'm honestly not sure. I believe they were walking home, so I believe they were in-state residents. I'll take 2 more questions.
There were 4 people that were in the car when it was pulled over, but only 3 arrested. Are there any details that you can give us about the 4th person?
The 4th person that was reportedly in the vehicle when it was stopped was not in the vehicle during the time of the shooting. We developed that through our investigation. And last question.
And did they make any comments to your officer when they were stopped? Have they said anything about why they were here specifically?
No, they did admit their involvement in this crime, but other than them being here and why they were here, they did not. Thank you all so much.